What's up, YouTube? KT here. As you can see, I've got the truck on the lift. Yeah, I've got a leak, power steering leak. I've had a fluid leak for a while. About 2 months ago, I noticed that it was starting to drip in the same spot every time. I knew it was power steering fluid because it started to growl. I've got Hydro Boost brakes and did a little troubleshooting and used some brake cleaner. Cleaned every part, got it all degreased, got all the power steering fluid off of there. Got it all cleaned off, started it up in the driveway, turned it to the right, got under and looked at it and didn't see anything. While I was under it, I had my wife get in and turn it to the left, and fluid started squirting out, or started dripping down in between the steering gearbox and the frame, like right in here, in between. So I'm thinking, well, maybe it was squirting from a hose down from above or something like that. Nope. Just like, this is how my shit is. It always works out this way. Can't ever be normal. My steering gearbox has a crack in it. Now, I have contacted the dealership where the guy used to have it serviced, and they show where he brought it in at 177,000 miles. He told me he had the front end redone on it. I don't remember him saying anything about a gearbox, but he said they had the front end redone on it, and sure enough, they found that his gearbox had an issue. Woo! He's gonna fall over, hang on. Shortly after that, I guess he had it fixed, had it repaired somewhere else beside the dealership. It has a Mopar remanufactured steering gearbox on it, new steering components, so I know he had it redone. That means this box has about 23,000 miles on it, because now it's at 200. And it's got a crack in it, so I'm gonna take it off and see if I can't do a brazing repair on it. The core's no good. I can't trade it in on a core. If I did, you know, somebody else is gonna end up with the problem. I don't want that coming back on me. The universe has ways of paying people back, so I don't wanna take a chance on that. So let's get started. Let's get some light on the subject. All right, so what I've done so far is, let's see if you can see over here where I'm at. All right, you have two return lines. These are not under pressure. The one on the outside is the return coming back from the Hydro Boost. You don't need to disconnect that because you're not gonna be removing the cooler, number one. You're not gonna be removing this hose. This is the return hose, the low pressure hose going to the cooler, coming off of the power steering pump. So when I pull this out, the pump's gonna come, it's gonna come with the pump, right? There's a high pressure hose going up to the top. That's an 18 millimeter flare nut. If you got an 18 millimeter flare nut wrench, you can get it off that way. I would recommend a flare nut wrench. That was on pretty tight. You're gonna take a chance on either rounding that off or oval shaping if you're using a regular wrench. So get yourself an 18 millimeter flare nut wrench. All right, I went and rented a Pitman Arm puller, and I'm getting ready to do that now. To get access to all this, I went ahead and disconnected the stabilizer bar. You got two bolts right here on either side for the bushings. They're 15 millimeters, and once you finish that, it just swivels down, basically using these little end joints here as a hinge. So 4 bolts, and it's out of the way. You don't have to mess with it. It's not gonna be in your way now. So what I'm gonna do now is get the Pitman Arm off. This was recently replaced, again, about 23,000 miles on it. It's got the new bushings for the sway arm, for the sway bar. It's got the drag link here, the stabilizer, all this stuff was replaced. And even the track bar, no, the track bar's still in good shape. Doesn't look like it's been touched. All right, I'm not quite sure on this SAE standard what size that is. But I've got a 32 millimeter on there, tight fit, it'll go. It's snug, you don't have to worry about stripping that one out. So if you want to do the conversion, I know it's bigger than the 1 inch and an eighth, maybe 1 3/16 inches or 1 1/4 inches, but 32 millimeter works just fine. Yeah, I know this is not, I know it's not an impact socket, but don't care. It's old and it was cheap, and even if it breaks, it's not going to shatter because it's not very high quality steel. It's not too brittle. All right, let me get the puller. This is a rental from AutoZone. I'm not sure I'm happy with it. I like the kind that you have to kind of force on. It seems like it might be a little weak kneed because of the wing bolts. We'll see how it does. I already don't like it. I don't know if you can tell, but the jaws on it are not getting up in between the actual gearbox and the Pitman arm itself. Yeah, so exercise caution when using the AutoZone tool. The jaw is too thick, it won't fit in between the Pitman arm and the gear case. So what I had to do is flip it around. And there's enough of a molding imperfection in between the two jaws that there's a little more room on one side, so it just fit better. Let's see what happens. Might have to do a little modification on it. I knew I didn't like it when I saw the design. Yeah, so these jaws are too thick. So what I'm gonna do is get my grinder and cut this down on the inside and give it a little bit of an edge because it's kind of rounded off. So that should help. That'll give me a little bit more. All I need is like a millimeter, maybe a millimeter. Let's see what happens. This is a piece of shit. If you go to AutoZone and they try to rent one of these to you, leave. Because since it's not fixed, it isn't a fixed jaw separation right here. Number one, these jaws are too thick to get in between the Pitman arm and the gearbox, right? They're too thick right here. And the reason they made them so thick is because of some chicken shit metal. Number one. Number two, when you're tightening these up, even when you get it up in there and you tighten these little bolts here, these things are so chicken shit that you can actually see this start to spread apart. So go with the fixed jaw, the one that actually fits on a Pitman arm and fits in between, that's made out of some heavier metal than this thing is right here. Turn around, go the other way. Rent from somewhere else or buy a decent one. This is setting me back like an hour and a half messing with this thing, just trying to get that Pitman arm off. Okay, next we're going to take off the steering column right here, where the U-joint is for that. And what I've noticed, and I don't know if it's like this on all of the on all the Rams, but, and of course, whenever you get ready to do this, you always want to make sure that your steering column is pointed straight ahead, and your wheels are straight forward. And these gears they're indexed. There's on the quadrants. So there's 4 all the way around. So you really can't. I mean, you'd have to be 45 degrees, 90 degrees out to put this thing on wrong. But what's cool about it is when your steering wheel is perfectly straight across, this 13 millimeter, I think it's maybe a 10 millimeter, it looks like a 10, that bolt that holds the collar on for the U-joint on the input shaft is right here, facing this direction, so it's easy to get to. Yeah, 10 millimeter bolt. Using a 1/4 inch drive, it's pretty snug, but it's coming out no problem. M12 Milwaukee 3/8, I forgot I had that. It's got a little blue Loctite on it, that's why. Make sure we'll put some Loctite on that when it's going back in. Probably wouldn't have hurt if I'd put some WD-40 or some PB Buster on this before I did this. Come off a little bit easier. Here we go. You can see a little rust on it. Okay, now back to the task at hand. Again, we've got the 18 millimeter flare nut on the pressure side, which is right up here. And then this one is the return side. We're going to leave that in place and get it down and out of the way. There are 3 bolts that go through the outside over here inside the fender well. They are 18 millimeters. 1, 2, 3. Sorry about the glare on the camera there. 1, 2, 3. Those are going to come out, and when those come out, this box is going to drop down. All right. I got 1 more bolt on the bottom. I've got the other 2 out. Let's see what happens. Oh, there she is. Okay, right here are the 3 bolts where it mounts to the frame. And right here is where I saw the fluid leaking out. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up again. And see if we can find it out. Okay, right in the middle, like right there. I saw it coming out. What looks like that seam right there, right below that seam. So what I'm going to do is I've got the return hose plugged, and I'm going to put some pressure, some air pressure on this, and see if I can't get that to seep out right there. How far are you zoomed in? That's as far as it's going to go. Let's see what we can do here. God damn it. Okay, looks like, even though I made a mess, I can see it showed up. All right, that little tiny oil spot right there, that's where this damn thing is leaking at. So, that's my goal, to try to braze that right there. We'll see what happens. See how lucky we are. What are the odds? Well, there it is, folks. I did not attempt the brazing repair on it because the case is cracked. And that's right where the piston goes in and out. That's the bore. That's the bore for the piston right there. Okay, so for a little housekeeping here, this states specifically on this little tag, this was wrapped around the shaft, the input shaft, that they check all the threads and everything when they remanufacture it, and I believe that's true. One thing I do when I get these, this is not the first one I've done, is I always check to make sure that the threads, not only that they're clean and that the threads are in good shape, but they're the same pitch. I've had situations where somebody has turned in a case to get it remanufactured and they tapped or installed the heli coil, or they tapped it out to a larger thread or something like that. So make sure all your threads fit. Bolts fit in each one of the holes. There's not any, this is a little stiff, but I think it's got a lot of paint in it. Yeah, that's just paint. Then also check the threads on your ports. They say they check them. They're not responsible. They're not going to take anything back on a warranty that has the threads boogered up here. So you want to check those. And this is they did a decent job on this, and they've indexed the input shaft. You can see it right here where the white is. They've indexed the input shaft. And then put some indicators on all the seals to make sure nobody pops it open. You avoid the warranty that way. So this should be, since it's indexed, it should go on exactly the same way it came off, and we'll be able to tighten up the bolts here. Steering wheel should be facing forward. Pitman arm should be in the right location to where the wheels are straight. Okay, let's stab the thing in there. Don't tighten any of the bolts until you get all three of them in there. Also, they say to flush these. You're supposed to flush your power steering when you're doing this. But I have used so much. I've used so much power steering fluid here recently. It's flushed pretty good. I mean, literally, it's like Kool-Aid coming out of there. So, oh, and also, the bolts are different lengths. So make sure that you put the right one in the right hole. Okay, torque on the frame bolts into the steering box are 145. Doesn't seem like a lot when you have a 3-foot torque wrench. So putting the gearbox back in is a little easier if you put the one bolt in the bottom, so you can kind of pivot it a little bit when you get ready to put your hoses in up top. The return hose I already had hooked up when I put it up, and I already had it connected to the gearbox. However, the pressure line is a little harder to get to, and unless you have a flare nut wrench bent at the correct angle, it's a pain in the ass. So if you leave the other two bolts out and you pivot on the bottom one, it gives you a little more room to work in here. So because of the flare nut wrench that I've got, doesn't have much of an angle to it, so it just gives me a little extra room to get in here and tighten this up, because it's a pain in the ass to get to, and you don't want to cross thread it. All right, so specs on the Pitman Arm call for 225. I just hammered it with my Harbor Freight Earthquake 20 volt impact, and I'm at about 240. So, and that's not with the, that's with about 50%, maybe 75% on the battery. So it put 240 pounds of torque on that. Let's see, so I got the hoses connected upstairs. I got the box torqued, tightened and torqued to 145 of the frame. Last thing is something that I noticed that the glass people that installed this, when they tightened up the hoses, they didn't make sure that there was clearance between the two, right? Your pressure hose coming down, and let's see, there's a pressure hose coming down, and then the hose coming off the bottom of the pump itself. And they were actually rubbing against each other. And if I hadn't done this, eventually it would have rubbed a hole. So make sure when you tighten everything up, that when you tighten it, that it doesn't bind up against and rub against another hose. There are also 2 plastic clips, separators on those hoses that keep them apart. And whoever did this last time didn't use those. So they weren't separating the hoses. It allowed them to rub together, but luckily it didn't rub a hole. So I've got my return lines here for the cooler. Clamps on, everything's tied up here. New O-rings. Got my Pitman Arm torqued down. I am gonna have to make a steering adjustment. Steering is straight ahead, but when I put my collar on up here, it actually cocked the wheels to the right. So I'm gonna have to loosen, I've got this loosened right now, and I'll spin it. Looks like I'll have to spin it backwards or left counterclockwise, looking at it this way, or clockwise that way. It's gonna have to spin this direction to tighten it and pull it in. And that'll straighten the wheels up over here. That is not a front suspension adjustment, that's a steering adjustment. Not messing with anything down here. All that's gonna do is close the distance between the drag link and the Pitman Arm here. Or the steering rod and the Pitman Arm here, it'll pull it in. So when it pulls that in, it'll pull the wheels over, straighten them up. I'm gonna go ahead and put the sway bar back in place. And that means we're headed upstairs to get everything done up top. And don't forget to put your bolt in for your steering. Okay, everything is good to go downstairs. Down below, everything's tightened up. I got 2 quarts of ATF plus 4, I think it is, for Mopar Chrysler. That's what it uses, transmission fluid. And again, I'll mention I didn't worry about flushing this out because I've leaked so much in the past 2 or 3 months. I know I've run at least 2 quarts of that through, plus a bottle of Lucas power steering fluid, which is kind of like goo. It's supposed to seal leaks, but it's not going to seal a cracked case. We'll get the fluid up in here, get it topped off. I'm going to jack it up off to get the front wheels off the floor, off the ground, crank it all the way one way, crank it all the way the other way, bleed all the air out of it, top it off, do that again a few times, cycle it through. That way we can get the bubbles out of the system, get it burped, and get it topped off. So that's next.
Many hours later.
All right, I got it. While I had it up on the lift, I put a cord in it and went lock to lock. It was tight. Took another probably 48 ounces. There might be 10 or 12 left in that quart to top it off. I'm gonna take it for a test drive and see how close it is as far as the alignment goes. When I replaced the last one, I did have to do a little bit of alignment on the turnbuckle, so it's growling a little bit. I can feel brakes are a little bit mushy, and she's making a little bit of noise. It might be some residual air, some air left over. Let's go see. Whew, okay. Doing some air conditioning here. Let's see. Tools that I used 15 millimeter for the sway bar, 18 millimeter for the frame bolts, 10 millimeter for the steering column collar for the input shaft. I used an 18 millimeter flare nut wrench for the pressure hose. I used should have been a 20 millimeter flare nut wrench for the return hose coming out of the cooler into the or coming out of the pump going into the cooler. That should have been a 20, but I didn't have a 20. I used a 13/16, which is good enough, just as long as you don't over tighten it and strip the nut out. You don't need a lot of pressure on those anyway, or a lot of torque on those to get them tight. The Pitman Arm is a 33. I hammered a 32 on there. It was a 12 point. I don't think you're going to have any luck if you try to hammer a 32 6 point on there, so go ahead and get yourself a 33 millimeter nut for the Pitman Arm. You're going to need a Pitman Arm puller. I didn't replace any of the hoses, they're still in good shape. Oh, one more thing, the instructions and the warranty on the gearbox itself, they say that they're not going to cover warranty if you don't flush it. Now honestly, there's only one way they're going to find out whether you flushed it or not, and that's if the fluid is black. That's if you don't have any other issues, and you just drop the old one, stick the new one, and you haven't changed the oil. Most of the oil is going to drain out of this. The oil, the steering fluid, the transmission fluid, power steering fluid, same thing, that I took out of this, or that I drained out, was about maybe 8 ounces, and the gearbox was still full of fluid when I took it out, but I put almost, I've just mentioned, I put almost 2 quarts back in it. So and it was leaking bad enough the first time I changed this out 2 months ago. I was putting enough fluid in it, so it pretty much was going through it as fast as I could put it in almost. So that was a pretty good flush if you ask me. But just make sure you drain all the nasty old black fluid out of it if you hadn't done it before. Outside of that, just a lot of sweat and elbow grease. A little bit frustrating in some points, especially with the Pitman Arm. It took me a long time to get the Pitman Arm off this time, because if you go to an auto shop, an auto store, and you do one of the rentals, inevitably the teeth are going to be too thick to get between the Pitman Arm and the gearbox. The jaws are going to be too thick to get through there, so I had to grind those off both times. The first time I did the AutoZone one, I turned it back in, it was 97 bucks. This one I got from O'Reilly was $14.99. It was on sale, so I figured, shit, as often as their boxes go out, I should probably hang on to this one. So anyway, mission accomplished. Really shouldn't take that long. I think it's probably, unless you have issues like I did, it took me an hour to get the Pitman Arm off by the time I went and got the tool and did the grinding on it and all that bullshit. You're probably looking at about 2 or 3 hours if you're handy, if you got the tools that you need. I would almost think that this is easier to do on the ground, on some jack stands. If you jack a car or truck up, use jack stands. Working overhead like this, especially with that gearbox, lifting it with, trying to curl it with one arm and getting this, probably what thing weighs 35-40 pounds, and you're trying to hold it up there, get the other one threaded, or get a bolt threaded. It's a little tough, but if you're laying on your back and you can do a little bench press on it, it's a little easier, I would think. The only issue there is you're in and out from under the car a lot, unless you got a helper. But that's it. We're gonna wrap it up here. Any questions, comments, leave them in the section down below. I've got some more videos coming up on the truck here. I'm editing the exhaust gas temperature gauge video right now. It's probably going to come up after this. I want to get this one up quick. Until next time, everybody. Again, leave comments, questions down below. Give me a like, hit subscribe. If you do subscribe, make sure you click on the bell next to my subscribe button to get updated if I have any new videos coming up. Until next time, everybody, take care. KT out.